Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, you listen to the morning wake up. I don't know how I forgot to say that, but please welcome to the show one of my favorite comedians of all time, Miss Chonda Pierce. Miss Chonda, how are you this morning?
I am so good. This is so nice of you to even want to chat. Most people trying to run away from my voice.
Oh, well, see, here's a little fun fact, and I can,
What?
attest to your voice.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember this or not, but I was your talent escort at the Dove Awards last year.
Oh, how wonderful! You sounded a little bit familiar, but I didn't know if it's just because, I have a friend or one of the guys at church or, and that's the hard part about my job. I don't know if you find this hard for you, but I'll go to a grocery store or something, and someone will come up to me with that look like I know you, and they'll say, I wasn't sure it was you until you opened your voice. Open your mouth and talk, and I'm like, yes, and you think they're going to say something about your DVDs or, you were inspired their life, and they'll go, I'm your son's, biology teacher, and it's like, oh. That's how the Lord keeps you humble.
It does. I've had that happen before. It was a little weird, but...
That's right.
But yes, I was your talent escort at the Dove Awards last year, and talking about your voice, I'm never going to forget the moment you and Sandy Patty ran into each other in the hallway, because my nephew happened to be escorting her that night, and y'all ran into each other and let out the loudest scream I've ever heard in my life.
I think that's kind of the fun part for me for the Dove Awards, since I'm not, there's no pressure for the comedians. We're not up for Dove Awards. They don't have a category for us, yet. But I will say, it is kind of a little bit like the youth camp days, where you just haven't seen somebody for so long and you finally run into them. And of course, Sandy and I were on tour together for about 80 cities or so, and it was so many years ago, but it bonded us for life, and I am so honored to call her a friend.
And see, I think I can attest to you being relaxed because of some of the jokes you told that night.
Yes.
I remember you said you were trying to get the crowd warmed up during one of the commercial breaks, and you said, did you guys come to have a good time tonight? And people were cheering, and you said, do we have any Baptists in the house? And some Baptists cheered. And you said, do we have any Pentecostals in the house? And they cheered. Do you have any Lutherans in the house? And they cheered. Then you said, are you guys ready for some good music? And everybody cheered again. Then you said, are you guys ready to feel the Spirit? And the people that said they were Lutherans started cheering, and you pointed them out, and you said, hold on a minute. You're Lutherans. What do you know about this Holy Spirit?
I can't believe I said that. I never remember half the time what I said.
I remember that. I cried backstage laughing at that.
Well, I will say I've met some very spirit-filled Lutherans, believe it or not, and I've met some very dry and quiet Pentecostals, so there you go. I think God's people just doesn't, I think sometimes, our theologies kind of fit our personalities. I don't know if that's good or bad or right or wrong, because I don't argue theology with anybody, but I do think it's so funny when you get a group of people that are not quite used to the rambunctious worship services, and they've shown up in a spirit-filled service.
Yes,
I love to watch their face.
That's the funniest thing, sitting watching them trying to figure out what's going on.
Exactly. And wondering, is this okay to do? I love it.
Now, when did you realize that you had the gift of comedy and you were able to make people laugh?
Oh, I grew up a middle child, so that's just kind of par for the course. When you grow up a middle child, you are always vying for a little bit of the family attention, and so it just comes with the territory of being a middle child. And at the same time, in order to cultivate that, and I hesitate to call it a gift, but as my husband says, the gift of gab. But in order to cultivate what it is that you feel is birthed in you, I always want to do anything that I do to the glory of God. And that's even when I was just a mom and a housewife, and I was a school teacher at one time, and, and I worked at a pizza parlor at one time, so there you go, And so everything that we do, we need to do to God's glory and do it with excellence. And so because I had an interest in performing, that's what I decided to major in college, and I was a theater arts major. And in my college experience, I was broke. And I had to get a job, and I went and auditioned at a theme park in Nashville, Tennessee at the time called Opryland, and I got in one of those shows, and I was there at Opryland for 6 years, in and out of the hallways and doing different shows, and I met Minnie Pearl, who was an icon in country comedy, and was clean, and as a young performer, I remember it really stuck with me. And, and I don't know what people's theology is. I can just remember a time when I was really close to the Lord and a time when I was not so close, And so at that time in my life, I wasn't living a Christ-like life. I wasn't pursuing Him. But it did stick out to me that she was a stand-up comedian. She was funny. She had developed a little character, and so did Bill Cosby. He stuck out to me. Red Skelton and Carol Burnett, all these incredible comics who were clean. And it's not that I was trying to make some spiritual statement to be clean all the time. It's just that I grew up a preacher's kid in the Bible Belt. I didn't hardly know a cuss word. I've not heard them around the house, you know what I mean? And so it was wonderful as a young performer to find that there were people who were creative and gifted and didn't sell out with, off-colored subjects or language that just shocked you instead of the theme being funny,
So you've been touring for, a few years now. And
oh, yes.
I know that with everyone that goes on a tour, they eventually encounter something kind of crazy.
Oh, yes.
Now, I understand there's two incidences that I want to talk about. I understand that you've had a fan hiding in your dressing room.
Oh, yes, and that's happened a couple of times, to tell you the truth. People just kind of get overzealous. I think, Robert, if you do your job well, people truly believe you are their best friend. And they'll just show up like your best friend does, walk in your house, And so some people don't create boundaries as well as others. And believe it or not, as open and honest as I try to be, there are some things I like to do by myself, like go to the bathroom. And sure enough, a lady hid in the shower of the dressing room almost all day, thinking that that's where I would be hanging out all day, and thank goodness I was hanging out on the bus. But because she just thought for sure if I would talk to her and get to know her that we'd be best friends for life. And I don't think that's the way to start a relationship. So that was an odd one. And then, of course, I know the other one you're going to ask me about because I put it on a video and everybody wonders if it's true. And I'll go, well, I'm a Christian comedian. Of course it's true. Parts of it is true. But I really did find a dead man in a hotel room.
Oh, wow.
And that was kind of freaky. And, and I look back on those days and the sad part of that is my first thought was, we need to save his life and revive him and do CPR and all that. My first thought was, oh, great, my career is in the toilet when they find out a man is in my hotel room. Isn't that awful? I have learned I have got to stop being such a people pleaser because somebody might really need CPR.
So I understand for a while now you had someone else go into the hotel room before you after that incident?
I do. I haven't. It just hits me once in a while. And it's like fear does for anybody's life. Once in a while when it's kind of dark, and some hotels are not as well lit, some are cheaper than others. They have one light bulb. I do every now and then get that kind of odd or eerie feeling, and one of my staff will go in and look in the bathroom first, look in the closets, and say, "Okay, you can come in now." Not like I'm the president or anything, but it's just because once something like that surprises you never forget that shock feeling.
So we have to talk about the Dove Awards this year, which you hosted.
I did, with David Mann. What a privilege. And I know I was just there, so, to add color to the room. But I will say, what an honor and a delight to be with him. He was so nice, and his sweet wife. I had just the best. I can't imagine anybody any more gracious and fun to spend hours with, because those award shows can go forever. But
oh yeah,
it was a delight. It really, really was. And then so many wonderful personal things happened during the show. My dear friend that I've been friends with for 30 years, Russ Taff, got the a Lifetime Achievement Award, and so that was there was just so many fun moments. Jason Crabb, who I've been friends with for a long, long time, and then little new friends, Jamie Grace, is a new little friend of mine that is just a delight. And so those award shows, and I don't know how it is in other award shows, but I do think it's kind of odd sometimes that we are in a market that's supposed to be glorifying God, and we're hanging out and giving ourselves awards. But the difference about the Dove Awards, it does feel as if we are all each other's cheerleaders and really, really glad for each other. And once in a while, even in the Christian market, it feels good for your peers to recognize your hard work. And I think that's all that the Dove Awards is. It doesn't mean somebody sings better than the other. It doesn't mean that someone's more spiritual than the other. It just means once in a while somebody gets to get a pat on the back, and you never know how God's going to work things out. That that very person may have truly needed some encouragement that night, and so yeah, it winds up being. I think people take them for what they are. Even the winners, I see that they're very touched and very glad, but they know where their real rewards are, and I love that aspect of. Giving out awards to Christians is just a tiny little taste of heaven,
Now, last year, you were what I called the commercial break comedian, because, Sherry Shepherd was the host.
And I didn't intend to be that. That's right.
Yeah, Sherry Shepherd was the host, and you came out and had the people laughing during the commercial breaks.
I know. And that was a big surprise to me, because I was just backstage hanging out with you, and somebody said, "Oh, are you going to go out and make them laugh?" And I go, I didn't know I was supposed to. So then the guy hands me a microphone going, "We sure could use your help." And so I made up everything most of the night.
I'd say you did a good job, because that Lutheran joke sounded like you practiced it before.
Well, you pull from what you know and what's worked for you out on the road.
Well, how did it feel, instead of being the commercial break comedian like last year, you were actually the co-host this year?
It didn't feel that much difference, other than the dress was different. I hate reading the teleprompter, but I try to do it graciously. You don't like to read someone else's words. If I'm going to get in trouble for words, I'd like to make them my own. But yeah, it was good. It was just it was very, very similar. Both years to me. All I know is to me nothing really changes in what I do or my demeanor or who I am, other than as the host, you've got housekeeping things that you have to get done. You have to introduce the next person, and so you're more constrained, and it is someone else's words, and at the same time, to me, nothing really changes. It's just that the camera's on and the camera's off. That's but I still stay the
same. Now, you hands down are one of the most sunshiniest people that I've ever met in my life.
Well,
that's a compliment. That's a compliment. But there was a point in time where you wrestled with a bout of depression that, took you to the point of being almost suicidal. And
oh, yes.
my question is, how does a comedian that, makes people laugh on an almost daily basis encounter such a powerful depression? And what do you say to someone that may be dealing with the same thing?
Yeah. Robert, depression is the gift that keeps on giving, and it just gives to anyone. That little tramp. It just depression is something that is it just shows up, and you don't really know why. There's a lot of factors that can play into people who may all of a sudden find themselves struggling with a deep darkness. Sometimes it is a genetic thing, I believe. Mental illness is genetic. If you struggle with bipolarism or a lot of those particular mental illnesses, they do seem to run in families, and so you have to be careful. Just like diabetes runs in the family, and poor eyesight, and all those things. They're no respecter of people, and so it's just something that sometimes shows up. For me, trying to reason out how did it happen, why did it happen. I look back now and I can see the years of not really paying attention to my health, of just getting it out there on the road and having a high old time, and that laughter and that joy and that fun and that adrenaline going for so long. It has to come down sometime. And that's one of the greatest lessons I've learned about my life and my body. And I tell that to everybody. What goes up must come down. So, and we as Christians, we need to hear those things. If you go and have an incredible, off the chart, rolling in the aisles, praising God at the top of your lungs, and I mean, it's the most spirit-filled Sunday you've ever been in your life, and then you wonder why Monday things are so dragging and all that. Well, a lot of that is your physical body has experienced a big high, a great adrenaline rush, and it can't sustain that. And so Monday's going to come along, and you're going to be a little down. Same thing if you go scream your head at the football game, and and just having a wonderful time, then you wonder why the next day you're just dragging and tired, and other than you might have drank too much beer, but. And even that, whatever gives you your body a false high, and it could be nothing more than caffeine, too much sugar, all those things. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I've seen it happen in everybody. Whatever makes your body have a great big, maybe it's an award show. You got a big award, you got plaques on the wall. Those moments bring these great highs. Your baby is born, and in this euphoria, that triggers some dopamine and trigger some, medical things in your body that it loves and wants and craves. What body wouldn't want to feel that all the time? But that's not reasonable, and that's not normal, and you cannot sustain that. And so what happens in that fight for that, or from that high, always comes the low, and so what goes up must come down. And especially if you're genetically predisposed to depression, your low is going to be even lower than everyone else. Now, the great news is recognizing that is a huge step. Because then, once you can go, I'm not crazy. I just had a really incredible, great weekend, so my body is tired. And we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we have so many little details. And why God doesn't fix that, I don't know. Maybe it's He's wanting us to be more in tune with Him and more enthused about Him than anything else. And so keeping our eyes directed on Him, staying in the Word every day, all of those things help to fight our depression, and even medicine. And I had to learn to embrace all of that to stay out of the deep, dark pit.
Well, do you think it's okay for Christians to be on antidepressants?
Well, it sure is okay for me. My doctor wrote me the prescription, and he's a great Christian. I always tell people, if you have a problem with me taking my medicine, then why don't you take your glasses off and drive home? We're in a fallen world, and praise God that He has enabled brilliant people to solve some of our daily struggles. And one is poor eyesight, and so we put on glasses. One is too much cellulite, so we put on a girdle. And for some of us whose brain is not making enough serotonin, we can take a medicine that can help that, and praise the Lord for it. I always tell people, I am here tonight because of the grace of God and 150 milligrams of Effexor, so back off.
Okay, so we've talked about, some of the dark moments. Now we have to move on to something lighter.
Good.
Now, your popularity has grown over the past few years, and with that, you've had the chance to perform at places where Christian comedians wouldn't normally perform.
Yeah.
And I've seen you mention that before.
I don't know that they wouldn't, but they just don't get enough invitations. I think all of them would probably try it, It's interesting. I tell you what, when my poor mother was living, I love her so much, but those are the things she used to worry about the most. She used to always say, I just wish you could go back going from little church to little church. And I go, well, then we wouldn't be able to show up on this bus. She goes, okay, then maybe medium church to medium church. Like, you can't. I love those love offering days were wonderful, but my house payment wouldn't take a love offering. And so I had to start knowing what my paycheck was going to be, and and then it gets bigger, and you have employees and all this stuff. And with all of that does come a blessing of popularity, and once in a while, somebody finds out who you are, and they invite you to do something, and then you have to make a choice. There's been a lot of things that I've been asked to do or be a part of that I've turned down because I can't. I don't understand my Christian walk, and also knowing my Christian market friends that would rip my tape out of a store real fast. Not that everybody isn't open to expanding your territory. A lot of people are afraid you're selling out or you're leaving God out of it, and that's not particularly so. In any given night, when you come to hear Chonda Pierce, if you popped in the middle of the show, you might think I'm just a normal comedian, without the cuss words, but I talk about spanks and sleeping with my husband and, and aggravating kids and all those things that other comedians find to talk about. But mine is done with the flavor of hope that you don't have to run for the remote control and change the channel. But at some point in that night, I'm going to pass by my faith and talk about it. And so there are places that I get invited to that would rather me not mention my faith, and I understand that. And I used to struggle with that, but my pastor used to say, go and put a funny face on Christianity so that they will not think that we are all strange and tight, mouthed and, and sour-faced, and, and he said, just go and be a light. And it's funny because we don't question anyone else. We don't question a guy who's asked to paint a house, and he finds out that the person that, he has to paint their house is a heathen. But you wouldn't look down on him. And so performing arts is nothing different. Once in a while we get invited to rub elbows with the sinners. To me, that sounds a whole lot like Jesus, because he spent more time with sinners than he did saints. And it was the saints that got him killed. So I feel excited and fortunate when I get to do something where people will look at the Christian and go, well, they're not all bad, and then they're curious, a little more curious about Christ and who I love, and so I think that's a good thing.
With that, do you find it hard to be a devout Christian in Hollywood?
No, because you don't let them change. I don't let them change me. If nothing, if anything, when you're in a dark place, you better shine that light bulb really well. You know what I mean? And it's like you better keep your armor on. You gotta. If anything, I think sometimes we live in the Bible Belt, and there's a church on every corner. We get lax in our relationship with our devotions and our Bible studying and our the things we know we have to do to stay close to the Lord. We get real relaxed, and that's not a good thing. That's when the devil has a feeding ground. When you're in a setting where you're getting ready to go into a place where people will be not even friendly, but they're almost overtly antagonistic about you. I've had people ridicule. I've had people say hurtful things, trying to rattle me about Christ. And And so it's not hard to be devout. It's when you're trying to fit their mold, that's a problem. But I don't try to fit anybody else's mold but the one that the Lord gave me to do. And I don't always do that well, but I'm getting better.
Throughout your career, I understand that you've managed to sell numerous gold and platinum albums.
I know. Can you believe that?
How did you pull that off without, the major mainstream promotion?
I don't know, other than, God's a pretty good promoter. He kind of promotes throughout the universe. I don't know. I had a fella call me up one time that said, how in the world do you have 4 platinum records and Hollywood's never heard of you? And I was like, I have no idea. I just kind of keep my head down and just keep doing the work. And I think there's a lot of artists that are incredible and wonderful, and yet they're independent art. They're not even on a record label. I know a lot of Christian artists that are extremely successful, and they'll never get a double worth. They're not even on the radio much, And so, God elevates you, and I hesitate saying that because then someone's going to get discouraged and go, well, he's not elevating me, and I'm doing my best. I don't know why it happens. Sometimes it truly is being in the right place at the right time. Sometimes it's just giving an audience something that they haven't heard before, or that they're hungry for, and there's no one better qualified to get that kind of reaction than Christian artists. We are giving them something that's bigger than ourselves. And that strikes a chord with a lot of people. And of course, I have a lot of comics that come up to me all the time going, how do you do that? And my number one thing I always say to them is, be funny. I know that sounds terrible, but,
it's true, though.
I hear these comics all the time, and I go, that wasn't funny. But they think if they throw in praise God right after the joke, then people have to laugh because they're, great, well, they're Christian. No. To me, a Christian audience, you better be really funny because, you're talking to God's people, and they deserve somebody to be really great at their job.
Yeah, and I know we Christians tend to be a little bit difficult to please. So it's kind of a hard thing to do.
Right.
If you can make a Christian audience laugh, then you are a master at your profession.
Well, I always tell my comedy club friends, I always tell my comic friends, going, you think you're funny, you come make a bunch of Baptist deacons laugh on a Sunday morning without a 2-drink minimum. We'll see how funny you are.
When you initially started doing comedy, did you ever, when you started doing it professionally, did you ever expect to be where you are right now?
Oh, heavens, no. I don't know what I expect. I wrote down one time, I had a manager that said, write down, 10 things you'd like to accomplish this year. I couldn't even come up with 10, and it's not that I probably did have too many low expectations for myself. And that you'll have to talk to my therapist about. But I had one of my goals was I wanted to be on the Grand Ole Opry. I just wanted to be on the Grand Ole Opry. Well, I've been on there 20 times. Now my goal should have been, I'd like to be a member of the Grand Ole Opry, those kinds of things. Or I just would like to have a gold record. That would be so great hanging on the wall. Well, now I've got 10 of them and platinum ones. And so I should have, made a little bit bigger on the list, because I'm sure God looks at all our lists and goes, that's it? That's all you got for me? I can accomplish so much more. And he can. He accomplishes so much more than we ever hoped or dreamed or imagined. And I just never, I can only imagine. I just never really, I guess I didn't think that much of myself or something. You just keep your head down and you keep doing it, and then you see, you step back, and all of a sudden it's been 20 years and you got a lot to show for it. And at the same time, it's 20 years of hard work and being away from home too much and missing my husband too much. And so everybody that is out in the workplace and in the work field, it's trying to balance all of those things called life and make it to the kingdom. That's just the number one goal. Is I just want to make it in.
Now, I don't know why, but I can't wrap my mind around the fact that you have 10 gold albums and 4 platinum ones.
I know, isn't that amazing? And never been outside of I think one time a video got in Walmart, maybe once, but all of it's been in the Christian bookstores or out on the road, or conferences or online. Yeah, it's just imagine. It's just a God thing, that's for sure.
You're doing better than a lot of mainstream musicians nowadays.
Well, I have this wonderful Hollywood manager that says I'd sell more tickets than a lot of the mainstream secular comics out there. They just can't figure out how is she doing this, and they're trying so hard to figure out the formula. That's what's so funny. I hear people asking me that all the time. Well-known comedians from top-notch agencies and all this stuff asking me, now what are you doing specifically? Where are you marketing to? And blah, blah, blah. And I always go, the church. And they're like, what? They just don't get that. And a lot of it is because I think, I don't want to make it, let's don't blame all of this on God. He may be listening to this interview going, Youre had nothing to do with this. I'm really a little busy, with the Middle East to be really concerned with how many people come see you. Sometimes, we think a little too much of ourselves. But I will say that I do believe that people are hungry for a heart, for something more than just a laugh, something more than just a cool vibe of a song or a great rap. Or they want, that's what I love about Lecrae. He's a master at what he does, and yet every lyric is to the glory of God, and he's becoming so successful, and people go, okay, how is that happening? Because he didn't talk about killing anybody or shooting anybody or degrading a woman, and no, he talks about relationship with God and getting your life right. And I love that. And people are hungry for that.
And I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and we were talking about, talent and how Christians, kind of stand out when it comes to the entertainment business.
Right.
And I told him that there's more to it than just being talented. Because, when you're talented, that just means you're good at something. But
right.
There's a complete different world when you're talented and anointed to do something.
Right. And that you can't market, you can't sell. That's something God does. It's like putting the shine on it, And you're right. And at the same time, I worry because I hesitate. There are a lot of people that love God and are working so hard. And for some reason, God got them in just a little small place in their world. And then those are the days you have to go on faith and going, I am where He has designed me to be, and therefore I will be happy. And it's the same principle that the Apostle Paul, do you think he ever looked around at the other apostles and said, well, I'd like my ministry to be a little bit bigger, a little more out there. I want to attract more people to come hear my sermons. And you couldn't come hear his sermons. He's sitting in a prison, and yet he said, I have learned that whatever state I am in, there to be content, because he knew God was in control. And to learn to be content right where you are is masterful. It's understanding who He is, and it's the ultimate trust of God. Can I trust Him with just the little bit that He has, or then He maybe can trust you with a whole lot more. And will I trust Him with a little bit even when I'm 90 years old? Or will I trust, am I only going to, do I serve Him because I want it to be big? No, you serve Him because He's God, and He's big.
Now, what kind of effect has, constantly touring? Because I understand that you're always on tour. On Twitter, it seems like every other day you're posting a video saying, hey, I'm coming to your town.
Yes.
But what kind of effect has constantly touring had on your relationship with your family and your relationship with God?
Well, it doesn't. It has affected it, that's for sure. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. But I don't work all the time. It always sounds like it because you have wonderful people that are out there, keeping things going for you when you're taking some time off. But I have very seldom ever worked in the summertime, and I have very seldom ever worked in the wintertime. And because when my kids were younger and at home, those were the blocks of times that they were home the most, and I wanted to take advantage of that. And so I never booked myself, or I never worked much in the summer, and I never worked much in the dead of winter. And I got in that habit when they were young, and I stuck with it for 20 years. I don't, about the end of, about the end of July, the 1st of August, I'm done. And then I don't pick it up again until about the end of September, about now, when it's time to tour. And then I work really hard. September, October, and November, I'll work really, really hard. Now that the kids are gone and I'm empty nested, it's been a little easier on my mindset because you don't feel that continual tug and pull as a working mom of going, okay, where are they getting supper tonight? Did I leave enough casseroles in the fridge? Did I write enough instruction down for Dad? And as a family, we made a decision years ago when we saw that God was kind of blessing this particular area. Then we gave up the 2-paycheck family. We just stuck with mine, and David quit his job, and he was an at-home dad for about 12 years. And that's the only reason I could survive doing what I'm doing, because I knew that there was security at home, that Zach's not going to miss soccer, and that my daughter was going to get to her play practice and all those things when the kids were younger. But as much as you try to plan, as much as you schedule and work at it, every working mom out there listening knows it's still tough. There's still that moment that comes up that you missed. There's still, and you're at the office working, and every working family, that's the struggle, and sometimes, we're in a culture that many times, especially in the South, it's the dad who's gone all the time. But for me, I was able to see my family probably more than those who have a 9-to-5 every day. Because when I was home, I was home. They had my undivided attention, and I would be home for days. And then the bus would take off for 3 or 4 days, and then I'd be home for days, and then the bus would go for a week, and then I'd be home for a week. And so it's been on and off like that, for 20 years. The tough thing, though, is that there's no way around it. I can't lie to you and go, oh, the Lord blessed, and we just got through it. I do think the Lord helps in that hedge of protection. He helped my kids see that it was about something more than just Mom being out there having a high old time. Both my kids have been out on the road with me to experience what God is doing, and they always walk away from the bus going, wow, Mom, I didn't realize you worked so hard. Or they'll say, man, God really used you tonight, and they always would say things like that to me. That was such an encouragement as a mother. And I encourage working moms all the time. Sit down and be really honest with your kids. Have that heart-to-heart tender thing and say, look, I wish I could be here 24/7, that I would have your peanut butter and jelly ready when you got off the school bus, that we would have those. But our economy, Mom has to work. And if you'll have patience with me, I'll have patience with you, and we'll get through this and create that team spirit, that team effort. That it's not, it's not you against them or your job against them, but say, be a cheerleader for one another and be honest with them. Go, I need a cheerleader because I'm struggling. I want to be with you today, but we need to pay the light bill. So Mom's got to go to work. And if you say it tenderly and not, not as I've done before too, sarcastically, well, enjoy those braces because I have to go, but if you do it in a real tender fashion, and just sit down with your kids and say, look, we are a family. It is first and foremost, and we're going to work as a team and as a family. And then you might have to be like my husband and I and say, okay, can we live with X amount of dollars? and let go of some things so that, somebody stays home.
What kind of effect has it had on your relationship with God and your walk with Christ?
Good days and bad, like everybody else, Robert. I tell you what draws me close to the Lord, and I pray that it's not a performance mentality. But I always tell people, I know me. I know my propensity to be a mess up. I know I could be a drunk and an addict in 5 seconds. I know that I could be out on a street, and I know every single human being has the potential to be horrible because we are born carnal in a carnal world. And so knowing that potential and standing on a platform and watching what God does with that every night's a surprise to me and a blessing, and so I don't ever get puffed up of going, look, God is using me and blessing my ministry. I'm always nervous about calling it a ministry because I go, God might not want to be, he might not want to be in this, you know what I mean? But I know that he uses what I bring to the table, which is nothing. And then he creates something incredible by it. And I'm just as amazed as anybody else. So with that in mind, I think working hard and seeing the success has increased my faith of believing in God, because only God could pull that off. I know my background. I know my childhood. I know how difficult it was. I know how, the pain. I walked through the pain. And I know last weekend, going back to work for the first time after my mother's death, I was an emotional, I was just an emotional bag of tears and laughter and joy and frustration and pain and grief, and yet God used it. And so that increases my knowledge that, man, there really is a God. Now, at the same time, I'm like everybody else out there that works too much, works too hard, or gets too busy, even especially those in ministry. We get too busy in the ministry doing the do, but we forget to build the relationship, and that comes with a price sometimes. And then we have to take a breath and step back and renew, our faith and get close to God. And I play nothing in my home but Christian music, and I've learned that the hard way. I have to keep myself absorbed and surrounded by things of God, because I know I'm going to go out there tonight and try to be funny in front of a bunch of folks that come with all kinds of baggage, and so I need all the armor I can get, and so you just put those ground rules in for your life, and you don't move them.
What's next for Chonda Pierce?
Oh, I wish I knew. If you have that crystal ball, or if you can tell me what the Lord's going to do next, I sure would like to know it. I don't know. I really don't. I've been toying with an idea for a movie now for a long time, and that's kind of been in the works, so they say, for a while. And we get really close. The script is done, and we get really close, and we get financial people that say, okay, yeah, let's go shoot it, and then somebody backs out. And that's been going on now for about a year, or someone wants to, send me a script, and it's not, it's some material or something that it just doesn't set right. It's not good. It's not what I want to do. And so, so movies is something I'm really interested in. I was in 3 movies last year, and that was fun, just small parts here and there, but it gave me an idea of what it's like, how it feels, and so I'd like to do maybe more of that, God willing. I have a new voiceover agent because my voice, they think, is so strange. I've been doing animation auditions and commercial auditions here lately, and that's been fun. But I just, I just do the next thing. I'm a great, proponent of Celebrate Recovery and AA. It's just one day at a time. And I think I'm not an alcoholic, but I do think that's a great way to live. I like to go to AA and go, "Hi, I'm Chonda. I'm not an alcoholic, but I sure like being here." They figured out how to do it right, and I married an alcoholic, and so I've been to meetings with him, and I think acknowledging God every morning, like alcoholics have to do, staying in a community, that understands them. And then knowing that it's day by day that we live, and that's a principle that works for everybody, whether you're an alcoholic or an addict or depressed or just headed to work today. Today is about this day. This day I give to the Lord, and this day I pledge to do my best, and that's all.
Now I have to say I've never heard of anybody going to AA meetings just
because
for
it's
the heck
great.
of it. Yeah.
Let me tell you, best church service you could ever find in your life is at an AA meeting, and I mean that.
Really?
Absolutely. Those are the people who know that they need God on an hourly basis sometimes. And I love that.
But see, I can only imagine, some of the looks that you may have gotten when you said, "Hi, my name is Chonda Pierce. I'm not an alcoholic, but I just like to hang out with you guys."
Absolutely. Where do you think Jesus would be? He went home with, Zacchaeus. He went home. He gathered a tax collector. He spent more time with sinners than anybody else, and we're all sinners. I like to be with honest people, and in a Celebrate Recovery or an AA meeting, or some of your Bible studies that you can get to, where people are just truly talking about the honest places that they're struggling, where they're doing good, where they're doing bad. Man, that's what God uses. He uses the absolute relentless truth.
Now, at the end of every interview, if I'm interviewing an artist or a band, I have a segment called the On the Spot segment where I ask them to sing something a cappella. But
I can sing something a cappella. Just name it. Come on.
Oh, well, see, I was going to ask you to do something a little different.
Okay.
I was going to ask you to tell a story.
Tell a story.
Just any story from your act.
From my act? Oh, for heaven's sakes. Well, this is a true story. When I was a kid, I went next door to the church because I was a preacher's kid, and I found these little tiny glasses over there, and I wasn't sure what they were from because I was real little at the time. And Mama says I went on the porch, and I set up a block, 2 blocks, and two brick blocks, and a little board, and I played Gunsmoke Saloon all day with communion glasses until somebody caught me.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, that's terrible.
Now, I have to say that I think the funniest story I've ever heard you tell was the story about your mom and slacks.
And what?
Slacks.
Oh, slacks. That's what you're saying. I'm like, oh, Lord, yes, she doesn't call them blue jeans or anything. She just wears slacks. I know I used to hide pants under my skirt so I could go to school and fit in, and take my skirt off when I got on the bus and roll my blue jeans down, so Mama couldn't see. And then, of course, there's that one time I took my skirt off and I had forgot to put my blue jeans on. But now that is a joke. But I used to hide my, my pants under my skirt, and that's funny. Oh, the things we do, that's making us more godly.
See, I remember during your act you said your mom was against wearing slacks and against earrings.
Oh,
but then
yes.
she got both of them, and you said it's like she got that AARP card and just went straight to hell.
That's exactly right. You know what? There was no one in the world that laughed harder at that than my mother. Oh, my gosh. Well, I sure appreciate this, Robert, but, man, I've talked to you longer than I have anybody in a while.
Well, Miss Chonda, it was so much fun talking to you. We have to have you in the studio one day.
That would be so much fun. I would love that sometime. I've always wanted to try my hand at being a radio DJ thing. I think that'd be fun. That Delilah that they have on there, sometimes she gets on my nerves. She's just always got some ooey gooey thing to say. I'd be going, girl, dump him.
The funny thing is, one of the stations in this building actually runs her show. So.
Oh, you're kidding me. That's hilarious. Well, thank you so much for this, Robert. I sure appreciate people like you that did help sell a few of those records, so I appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you. Now, where can your fans find you? Where can they connect with you?
Chonda.org online, CHONDA.org. Christian bookstores everywhere, and in concert everywhere. Just come see me.
Yes, because her tour dates are posted on her website.
Absolutely.
Just to,
and
help.
Facebook. I love the Facebook.
I figured I could just, help push your tour dates just a little bit.
That's awesome.
Well, Miss Chonda,
thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. We have to do this again, hopefully before the year is out.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you. You have a blessed day.
All right. Bye-bye.